CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com, and welcome to the Treehouse. Today's book we're going to be reading, The Best Nest. But before we get to today's book, we have to meet our resident little guys. As you all know, this is Chief, and this is Sarge. They love adventure, and they love exploring, and they love finding new things. But the thing they like the best is their home. To them, that is the best nest. The adventures of Chief and Sarge started because the little guys wanted to share their real life adventures with everybody. So we took lots and lots of pictures while we took our adventures. And those adventures can be found under this Chief and Sarge tab on cjpetersonwrites.com. You can also see a lot of the many people that we met along the way. If you see us out on an adventure, make sure to get your picture taken with them. You can have your picture up there as well. Now for the best nest. Mr. Bird was happy. He was so happy he had to sing. This was Mr. Bird's song. I love my house, I love my nest, in all the world my nest is best. I think that for him, yeah, that probably is the best nest. Then Mrs. Bird came out of the house. It's not the best nest, she said. I'm tired of this old place, said Mrs. Bird. I hate it. Let's look for a new place right now. She doesn't seem very happy. So they left the old place to look for a new one. This place looks nice, said Mr. Bird. Let's move in here. They're going to move into this little hole. I don't think that's their best nest. But somebody else had already moved in. I don't think he wants company. So they looked at another house. This one looks nice, said Mr. Bird, and there's nobody in it. But you're wrong, said Mrs. Bird. This house belongs to a foot. It is not the best nest. So they went on looking. I like this one, said Mr. Bird. It has a pretty red flag on the roof. I've always wanted a house with a flag, said Mrs. Bird. Maybe this place will be all right. I think this guy here, may have something to say about this house right here. But it was not all right. I guess I made a mistake, said Mr. Bird. That house is for mail. You make too many mistakes, said Mrs. Bird. Well, she is not very nice. I'm going to pick the next house. And here it is, right here. I think there's an issue. They flew in, they looked around. Isn't it too big, asked Mr. Bird? I like this big place. I see a problem, said Mrs. Bird. This is the place to build our new nest. I don't think so. They went right to work. They needed many things to build their nest. First, they got some hay. Then they got some soda straws and broom straws. Then they got some sweater string. They got some stocking string and some mattress stuffing. Well, they're just stealing from all over, aren't they? They got some horsehair, and I don't think he appreciated it. They got some man hair, and I really know he didn't appreciate it. Soon they had all the hay, all the straw, all the string, all the stuffing, all the horsehair, all the man hair they could carry. They took it all back to build their nest. Mr. and Mrs. Bird worked very hard. It took them the rest of the morning to finish their nest. This nest is really the best, said Mrs. Bird. I want to stay here forever. I still see a problem. Mr. Bird was very happy too. He flew to the top of his house. He sang his song again. I love our house. I love our nest. In all the world, our nest is best. He was so busy singing, he didn't see Mr. Parker coming. What's Mr. Parker going to do to their nest? Every day, oh no. Every day at 12 o'clock, Mr. Parker came to the church. Mr. Parker came to pull a rope. The rope went up to the bird's new nest. The rope rang the big bell right under Mrs. Bird's nest. Bong, bong, bong. I told you there was a problem. Mrs. Bird got out of there as fast as she could fly. Bong, 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 bong. I guess her choice wasn't the best either. When Mr. Bird came in, all he could see was a mess of hay and string and stuffing and horsehair and manhair and straws. Where was Mrs. Bird? Oh, I bet he was worried. I will look for her until I find her, said Mr. Bird. He looked high. He looked low. He looked everywhere for Mrs. Bird. He looked down into a chimney, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. Do you know where Mrs. Bird went? They said they know where Mrs. Bird went. Do you know where Mrs. Bird went? I have my suspicions. He looked down into a water barrel, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. Then he saw a big fat cat. Uh-oh. There was a big fat smile on that fat cat's face. There were some pretty brown feathers near the fat cat's mouth. Mr. Bird began to cry. Oh dear, he cried. This big fat cat has eaten Mrs. Bird. Mr. Bird flew. I'll never see Mrs. Bird again, he cried. It was getting dark. It began to rain. It rained harder and harder. Mr. Bird could not see where he was going. Crash! Mr. Bird bumped into something. It was his old house. That old house that Mrs. Bird hated. I'll go inside, said Mr. Bird. I'll rest here until the rain stops. But he was sad. He thought Mrs. Bird had gotten eaten by a cat. Mr. Bird went in, and there was Mrs. Bird sitting there singing, I love my house, I love my nest in all the world. This nest is best. You? Here? Gasped Mr. Bird. I thought you hated this old nest. Mrs. Bird smiled. I used to hate it, she said. But a mother bird can change her mind, you see. There is no nest like an old nest for a brand new bird. Well, they were going to have a baby bird. That's so exciting. Well, I hope you enjoyed the reading today, and I hope you love your nest, your home. And this is Chief and Sarge, and I'm CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com. Until next time.